listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
I wanna see the light.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us be part of your day. My name is Jerry Mitchell. Sitting here with me is Myra.
Hi, everyone.
She's still dancing to the beat of the music. It's a nice day where we are. The windows are open. If you happen to hear some really strange sounds in the background, they're doing construction across the street from us, so it's hard to tell what you might hear. You might hear concrete trucks. You might hear, well, the other day it was really weird. They dropped a piece of steel I-beam, and the ones they've been putting up are probably about 20 feet long. And when it hit the concrete, it was loud. But there was no emergency vehicles that showed up, so apparently nobody was hurt. It was just loud, very loud. Hopefully, wherever you are, whenever you are, it's a nice enough day where you are that you can enjoy that as well. Hopefully, there's no storms, nothing to interrupt your peace and tranquility. And I'm not laughing at that. I'm just kind of thinking about something. I can't remember exactly who said it, and it was said not that long ago. As long as none of the hurricanes mess with my fishing, I'll be good. So there are people that that have that attitude. As we look today, I'm going to look at something today in a way I've talked about it kind of before, but not a lot. But I saw something yesterday that made that, like there's a THET word in English, that made me that reminded me of something I've said. And it was kind of interesting the way it played out. We went to the local powwow yesterday. Now, for the folks who aren't from the United States, who don't know what that is, maybe, the Native Americans gather together different places across the country, and it kind of depends when that is and how that happens, but they gather together and they have what they call a powwow. And when they do this, the different nations come together, different tribes come together, and they celebrate, they dance, they have dance competitions, they have their I guess they still call them tribal council meetings, I think is what they still call them. It's been a while since we've been involved in that circle. But they used to have tribal council meetings. I'm sure they still do it, whatever they might be called now. But they just get together, and it's really an interesting, interactive time for them. They celebrate their heritage. And it's actually, we saw something yesterday I never used to see a lot. Now, it's been over 20-some years since we've actually been involved with any of the Native Americans. And yesterday gave us a chance to see a couple of people that I used to know pretty well. Used to be really good friends with the father of a couple of the people who were there. And now they are including people from Central and South America as well. There was some really pretty regalia there yesterday. The blue thunderbird was kind of neat. Mm-hmm. So there's that Aztec and South American. Anyway, there's the South American aspect to it, and they're really, really interesting regalia that goes with that. And most of the time, they make their own. They do their own leather work. They do their own fur work. They do their own bead work. American natives will still use porcupine quills that I think are really, really, really neat. All of that goes together. But what amazed me was kind of cool, because all of these people standing out when they did their grand entrance, they stood out, and there were red-skinned Indians, right? There were black-skinned Indians. There were white-skinned Indians. There were brown-skinned Indians. Whatever skin tone of people there are in the world, that's who was there. With absolutely zero racial tension in the entire crowd.
Exactly.
Now, that might sound a little strange to you, okay? People gathering together of all different colors, and some of them have different religions. Not all of them, even though their heritage is all Native American, they don't all practice the same religion. But all these people gathering together, there was no explosions, there was no war started, nobody got scalped, okay, just saying. But all of that comes together, and all of these things happen. And it's amazing that they were there simply to celebrate their heritage. They had all of their regalia on, they had all of the stuff going on, and there was something that I could say there was something in the air, right?
Besides the white sage incense.
Well, that's where I was going with this. Was the sage that they burned to cleanse the area of unholy spirits. And I'm looking at this, and my mind was going back to, believe it or not, Exodus 30. Okay? And you're going to see something come out of this that's amazing. Exodus 30, 1 through 10, if you would read that.
Make an altar out of
Acacia wood?
for burning incense. Make it square, 18 inches long and 18 inches wide. It must be 36 inches high. Make the corner sticks out of horns. These must be one piece with the altar. Cover its top, its sides, and its corners with pure gold. Put a gold strip all around the altar. Make 2 gold rings beneath the gold strip on the opposite sides of the altar. Slide poles through these gold rings to carry the altar. Make the poles from acacia wood and cover them with gold. Put the altar of incense in front of the curtain. The curtain is in front of the Ark of the Covenant. Put the altar in front of the lid that covers the Ark of the Covenant. There I will meet you. Aaron must burn sweet-smelling incense on the altar every morning. He will do this when he comes to take care of the oil lamps. He must burn incense again in the evening when he lights the lamps. So incense will burn before the Lord every day from now on. Do not use this altar for offering any other than other incense or burning offering. Do not use this altar to offer any kind of grain offering or drink offering. Once a year, Aaron must make the altar ready for service to God. He will do it by putting blood on its corners. This is blood of an animal offered to remove sins. He is to do this once a year from now on. The altar belongs completely to God's service.
Okay, so using incense is nothing new to the Creator. It's lost on many Christian denominations. Now, I'm not going to go into what was in the incense, okay? You can look that up and you will be surprised at what they were using. I'm just saying. I want to, but I'm not going to. Now, along with the dancing and the vendors selling food and everything else that was going on at the powwow yesterday, they were burning this incense and they were carrying it around with well, I shouldn't say it that way. A few people who were carrying it around, and what they would do is much like was done before the altar was built, when they would offer the incense in a censer, and it was actually done later than that, than this as well. But it's amazing to me that the things that we celebrate and the ways that we celebrate are often so similar, because they're but at the same time they're different. Now, a lot of times when we think about I shouldn't say we. A lot of times when some people think about associating Native Americans with the children of Abraham, it's like, well, they're the lost tribe. Well, maybe not. I'm not going there because it's just kind of silly to go there with what I want to talk about. Here's the thing. Why do we see the similarities? What are the why? And it's not just Native Americans. There's other cultures around the world that do this. They come together peacefully across the national boundaries, I guess is a good way to say it, and they meet together. And some of the tribal communities in the Middle East and Far East parts, they come together to do different things. What is it that drives that? Why is it that people do this thing every once in a while? They'll get together and everything's okay. Well, if we look at Deuteronomy 16 and 17, if you want to read that, we might get a clue to the answer.
All your men must come before the Lord 3 times a year. They must come to the place he will choose. They must come at these times: the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Shelters. No man should come before the Lord without a gift. Each of you must bring a gift. It should show how much the Lord your God has blessed you.
Okay, so in the instructions we get in the first 5 books of Moses, 3 times a year, people are supposed to gather and meet together, right? Well, chances are that the people from the Far East, or the people from indigenous to the United States, weren't there to hear this, right?
Right.
Okay. When we look at the Jewish community today, what do we see? What's obvious to us? Skin tones of every color, right? There's the white European Jewish folks, there's the black Ethiopian Jewish folks, and the kind of lighter skinned Yemen Jewish folks. I mean, they had, you name it, across the world, there's Chinese Jewish folks, Sammy Davis Jr. Jewish folks, and I make fun of him a lot because he was just an easy target, right? Let's face it, he's no longer allowed to defend himself, but he was an easy target. And we use people like that to make a point. All of these people got along very well, and they still do. When they gather together to celebrate, they still do. So everybody that comes together like that can get along. My question is, why do we allow the enemy of not only the people, but the enemy, the creator, to divide anybody based on race? When all of these groups can gather together in complete peace and complete, they're looking to celebrate heritage. They want to come together to celebrate what binds them together, not what drives them apart. But we allow the enemy to drive people apart. There's a lot of things that can drive us apart. It's not just skin color. But skin color seems to be something the enemy really likes to use because it works. We can see somebody's different, right? You don't look like me. Why don't you look like me? But, to get to know somebody before we can determine if they're good or evil, well, that means I've got to talk to you. That means I've got to know what kind of person you are. That means I've got to come out of my shell and come out of my comfort zone and actually hold a conversation. Ooh, I might not like that. The similarities between the American Pow-Wow and the what's known as the pilgrimage feast in the Bible are kind of amazing. Now, there's some differences, all right? I'm not going to get into the differences today. That's not the point I want to make. What I want to impress on everybody, though, is that the instructions that we have from the Creator are already in us. Now, there's going to be some Christians out there go, well, the Torah's not, the law's not written on our hearts yet. Well, yeah, it is. Think about this. Think about this really, really, really hard for a minute. Just because we don't understand how to get everything right doesn't mean that those instructions aren't already in us. When our Creator breathed into Adam the breath of life, He gave us the instructions we would need. When Adam and Eve sewed the fig leaves together, okay, they didn't learn how to sew in home ec class. Now, I'm just aging myself right there, aren't I? Because they don't call it home ec class anymore. I don't even know what they call that now.
They don't have it.
They don't have it anymore?
No.
Okay.
Which is sad.
Yes, it is. But Adam and Eve didn't have home ec class. They had that knowledge put into them when God breathed the breath of life into Adam, and Adam passed it on to Eve through his rib. We didn't have the knowledge of how to make musical instruments taught to us necessarily. That knowledge was already there through the breath of God. When Tubal-Cain says he was a worker of brass and iron, did he have to actually go learn how to be a miner first? Because brass and iron, or brass is a not a natural element. It is a compound. You have to have tin and copper. So did he have to learn how to go mine these things and then put them together? Was he a miner before he was a worker of brass? Think about these things. All of these instructions were already part of us. The problem was Adam rejected them. When Adam rejected them, it made it very, very difficult for those things to be passed on the way it was intended for them to be passed on at the beginning, when everything was still perfect. Now they're being passed on, and it has to sort of come out as various skills. So when the Almighty's knitting us together in the womb, He's reminding us of these skills that we have. That's why some people, they're musically inclined. Other people can they can produce wonderful pieces of woodwork. Some people can look at a piece of steel and say, well, if I cut it this way and I cut it that way and I can heat it and bend it that way, they can make very, very useful, long-lasting things out of it. Other people can take a needle and thread and put things together. Some people can't. Some people have this amazing ability to look at a situation and say, you know what, if I gather this group of people over here and that group of people over there, and I can bring them together and celebrate and not have to worry about all of the things that divide us, but we can celebrate the things that bring us together. When we look around and we see what's happening in our world right now, it's kind of a wonder that we're even still surviving, isn't it? We look at the world and we see all the bad stuff going on, but we do survive. And we survive just exactly the same way that Job did, the same way Abraham did. Those of us who will survive are going to survive by faith. I heard something over the weekend, not yesterday, but before that, that just after World War II, now this is a theory that some folks are coming up with. Just after World War II, we had a time in the world, and this is generally speaking overall in the world, that it was very peaceful, other than a few conflicts, right? It was very peaceful. There weren't any really active worldwide terrible times, I guess is a good way to say that. Many diseases were controlled. There were places in the world where disease broke out. There were places in the world where hunger may have been an issue. But generally, it wasn't a worldwide problem. We had almost, 70 years or so of kind of, and again, very general, kind of a peaceful situation where people were most unlikely, I guess is a good way to say this, to be very, very aggressive towards other people. There were a few outbreaks. I'm not going to negate that at all. But it wasn't on the worldwide scale like you saw World War One, World War II. Prior to that, we had the Spanish-American War. There was war in the different provinces of China. There was war across Europe in the 1800s. War and disease, pestilence, hunger had been a worldwide issue until just after World War II. And part of their theory is that now, with an increase of aggression, an increase of disease, maybe we're getting back to normal. Well, is this the normal that we want to get back to? Right? It's hard for me to grasp this concept of normal being the desire to return to a time when the world was in complete conflict. The world was in complete chaos, for lack of a better way to explain that. But the working theory is maybe we're getting back to normal. There's a term in sociological circles known as the Normalcy Bias. And it's what leads people to disbelieve or minimalize threat warnings. Okay? During the 1930s, the Jews in Germany under Hitler had a lot of warning. But those warnings were ignored not just by the Jews, but by the entire world. The world saw what was going on, and it's not going to be, it can't get much worse. It can't get much worse. It'll be okay. This normalcy bias is also applied to people who live on islands. Now, I'm not talking about large islands like Australia. Okay? I'm talking about smaller islands. And they're subjected to the major storms and other natural disasters, but they continue to live there. And for them, I'm going to live in, and this is going to sound a little stereotypical, but I'm going to live in my little grass hut, and if I get killed, it's normal. It happens, right? That's kind of their mentality. It's acceptable to them. Everybody's got to die sometime. But the folks who live there, they have accepted this lifestyle. It's their normal. It's kind of like an ostrich sticking its head in the sand. The normalcy bias, well, if I can't see it, it's not going to bother me. An ostrich sticks its head in its stand and says, "Oh, I'm safe because I can't see the danger. I'm ignoring the warnings." It's kind of like learning to play peekaboo with a child. You know how you cover your face, and you go peekaboo when you uncover your face, and then the kid gets to playing along, and they'll cover their eyes and they'll say, "You can't see me." and parents and uncles and aunts laugh and think it's cute. But it's exactly the same thing. The warning signs have been ignored in the world. They've even been embraced by some people. Racism is a warning sign, and it's a warning sign of the presence of evil. And right now, it's running rampant worldwide. Not only is racism being embraced by evil, but it's actually being embraced by people who claim to be doing good. Churches have embraced racism under the mistaken guise that they're making it a central part of worship. Instead of saying, "Yeah, okay, you look a little different than I do. It's okay." They're some, not all, thankfully, but some places are actually trying to make money on this. And that's what they're using. They're using evil in an attempt to raise money for what they think is good. Now, the Bible doesn't mention separating people by race. It does mention separating people, though. The Bible says we separate the people by what God they serve. Let me say that one more time. The Bible talks about separating people by what God they serve. Now, it's amazing that you can bring all races of people together to celebrate their ethnicity, where they come from. You can bring them together to discuss all kinds of things. But you know what you can't bring people together to do? Think about this. You cannot bring people together to worship different gods at the same time. Our Creator will not allow that to happen. Normal in our world is change, because nothing is going to stay the same. People age, animals age, trees age. Nothing stays exactly the same, and that's normal. Peace is really never normal, because there are always going to be people who embrace evil and create chaos. Even when they don't think they're doing it, even when they don't really want to, that's not their prime motive, they will. But there is something that's going to give us hope. We have the capability to know what the instructions are from our Creator. We have the ability to learn those instructions that may have been forgotten, and we have the ability to choose good over evil. We can look around and we can see the evidence of it. You can see the evidence of it when people gather for the feasts of the Almighty. You can see it when people gather together to celebrate their ethnic backgrounds. You can see it when families gather together. There's going to be some teasing among families sometimes, right? And y'all know what I'm talking about. But what you're not going to see is peace when people try to worship different gods in the same place at the same time. There's a movement in Israel where they're trying to make the Temple Mount a place for people of all faith. And it's not going to work. And it's not going to work because our Creator won't let it work. That's His. He demands it, and it will happen. Even Moses knew this was going to happen. In Deuteronomy 12, he says, "Be careful not to be trapped by asking about other gods. Don't say, 'How do these nations worship?' and I'll do the same." He says, "Don't worship your Creator the way that other people attempt to worship their gods with a little g." I think it's interesting that people can gather to celebrate their heritage. They can gather to worship. And as long as you're worshiping one God, it's wonderful. It's actually something that should be celebrated. And it's going to be done in peace, but our Creator just won't allow us to cross worship. He says it's absolutely disgusting and vile when people attempt to worship Him the way other people worship other gods. People being people say, it's just because of the God we serve. It's because they're different than me. It's because of this. It's because of that. But look around. Look around. Have you separated yourself because of something you can't see? Now I'm going to go here, all right? Because this needs to be brought out too. Have you separated yourself because of a needle? There are people who hate based on what is contained inside of a needle. And y'all know what I'm talking about, right? There are people whose hate is not based on fear. It's not based on ignorance. It's based on someone else telling you to hate. It's based on you putting your trust in a false God. Believers are being divided because they follow the ignorant instead of listening to the Creator. Why would anyone choose to hear evil instead of the Almighty? Now some of them think they're listening to the Almighty. But what they're actually hearing is evil, because the only time God will separate you out is when you're not hearing His voice. It's when you're not doing the things He asks you to do. The difference between being concerned and being afraid, because I know there was somebody out there who says, "Well, I'm not really afraid of anything. I'm just really concerned about this." Right? Don't kid yourself. Don't be deceived. You're afraid. Being concerned, we listen to the warnings. Being afraid, we ignore the warnings. We stick our heads in the sand, and it's dangerous. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is dangerous. When you follow the ignorant, you are following the people who, for whatever reason, whether they don't have the information or whether they have the information and they're leading you astray. We need to stop concentrating on what divides us. We need to come together. We need to worship the Creator. And we need to tell these people who would choose to divide you based on race, based on vaccination preferences, based on anything else, that you can't divide us based on that. Our Creator will divide us based on His criteria, not on our criteria. And His criteria is, are you listening to me, or are you listening to somebody else? That's what His criteria are. It's that simple. That's what it comes down to. Now, if a bunch of Native Americans and white-skinned folks can come together and not have a problem, not have an issue, I kind of believe that There are enough intelligent people left in the world that they should be able to come together and see the difference between what the Almighty is saying to you and what the enemy is saying to you. Because you're being prepared for something. You're being prepared for something big. There is an event that is coming. And when we get together on Thursday night, you're going to think I'm talking politics. But I'm not. Because I'm going to mention something I don't talk about very much. Because I shouldn't have to. We're going to look at why the one world order will happen. Not from a political standpoint, from a biblical standpoint. And there is one. A big one. There's a reason this is going to happen. There's a reason all of this is being lined up. And you have the choice to make right now who you are going to follow. Because when it comes down to it, the days of sitting on the fence is over. You have to decide, are you going to stand with the Almighty or are you going to stand against Him? Because there's no gray area here. So until then, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you Thursday.
Absolutely. Everyone, until Thursday, stay safe. Don't be afraid. And may you receive all the blessings your Creator has poured out for you.